I plotted out the whole thing in, I think, literally like half an hour before I had to
Wow.
go for the wedding. And it's never happened to me before, and it's not happened to me since.
There are tales of rogues and whores, of stratagems and wars. There's a tale for every season of the year. There are tales of knights and queens, of drudgery and dreams. There's a tale for everybody here. There are stories galore, in volumes by the score, on every subject throughout history. It's all waiting in Pandora's library.
Welcome to Pandora's Library, the monthly pod where I interview authors who write about the stranger things in life. My name is Karen Hamilton-Vile. I'm a paranormal murder mystery author of a series of books about Ada Baker, a medium who solves murders with the aid of the ghost she lives with. This month I'm interviewing Rebecca Templeton. Rebecca is a debut author whose stunning romantic fantasy novel, Lochbound, was published by Sphere in April 2026. She's represented by the DHH Literary Agency. Rebecca has loved writing since an early age and previously worked in the legal profession before becoming a writer. She lives in Essex with her husband and 2 children, where she loves crocheting giant blankets. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I heard about you because I saw your online adverts, and I thought it sounded like a brilliant concept for a novel. So I got in touch. Can you give us an outline of what your novel is about?
Yes, so Lochbound is a reimagining of The Little Mermaid, but with kind of a Scottish folklore twist. So it's a historical fantasy set in 1700s Scotland, and my heroine is cursed to spend more than half of her life trapped in the loch as the Loch Ness Monster. So she then has to go on a journey to try and break her curse. And it all goes horribly wrong from there.
And what are the tropes of the novel, just to help people find what's in it?
So, cursed heroine, there is an enemies to lovers kind of slow burn romance as well. There's a murder mystery in there, and it's a sort of a kind of loose fairy tale reimagining, and kind of monster versus monster hunter as well. So a few of the kind of romantic fantasy tropes ticked off.
And are you happy to read us a short piece from it?
Yes. So I picked out 2 very short bits that I thought I would read you. So the first is when my monster and monster hunter have been kind of having a bit of a fight. And then there's a sentence: her skin seems to shimmer like mother of pearl as they stand enveloped in mist, 2 lost people with nothing but secrets between them. And I think that for me kind of sums up the whole kind of interaction between the 2, is that both of them are hiding things. Obviously she's hiding quite a big secret, and it just kind of shows that push and pull, I think, between not just these 2 characters but other characters as well. She's hiding the secret from everybody. And the second one, which is probably slightly heavier than the first one. So grief is quite a big theme throughout the novel, and there is a passage during a conversation between Iris and another character where they talk about grief, and he says, grief kills something in the person who has suffered the loss. We may go on as we did before, rejecting its persistent presence, or we may go on differently. We may grow and learn and accept grief. Whichever path you choose, that part of you that was killed will never come back. No person I have ever known has suffered a loss has truly healed. They have simply learned to live with that deadened part of themselves, changed by that departed person's love.
Lovely. So reworkings of old stories seem to be very popular currently. The other Bennett sister being a good example at the moment.
Yes, I
Which
love it. I've watched it several times.
I've watched it twice as well.
I haven't actually read the book. It's on my list now
I haven't.
to read.
Likewise. So were you specifically looking when you started out to make a new version of an old story when you set out to write the novel?
Not really. I don't think so. I think I've always been very heavily influenced by kind of my childhood reading experience, and I read anything and everything when I was a child. So I think it was probably inevitable that, I would end up kind of going back to one of those stories that had meant a lot to me when I was growing up. And it went from there, really. And I've always been kind of very into historical and kind of fantastical worlds as well. So I think it all just came together. But no, it wasn't sort of I'm going to pick this tale and do a reworking of it. It was kind of more, organic than that, I think.
And why do you feel people are so drawn to new versions of old stories?
I think there's that element of comfort in familiarity, and I think being able to root yourself in something that you do recognize, but then also you have the adventure of the twists and turns as well that take it somewhere completely new. But I think I've always found it quite comforting to be able to settle into a story where I know kind of, what world I'm in and sort of, what to expect, the unexpected, I suppose, from something fantastical. But I think that is certainly a big attraction for me.
And where did the idea of combining Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid story with Scottish folklore come from?
So it sounds pretty obvious. I actually have no idea where it came from. I actually had the idea while I was having breakfast at a hotel before going to one of my best friend's weddings, and I have no idea where or how or why I started thinking about the Little Mermaid, but I started thinking about the story and was kind of thinking, what? Wouldn't it be cool if actually she wasn't a mermaid trying to explore a new world and try to enter a world that she doesn't really belong, but actually she's trapped under the water where she really doesn't belong and she's trying to get back to where she should be, and sort of reverse the tale a bit. And started thinking about how could we confine her a bit more so she's not kind of out at sea in the ocean with a vast world to explore. She's actually really trapped, not just in the sense of the curse, but also physically under the water. And that's I think where I kind of started thinking about the Loch Ness monster, and it all sort of went from there. And the more I started thinking about what kind of form she could take, I didn't think I wanted her to be a mermaid in the traditional sense. I wanted her to be something darker, especially because there's that interplay between her and Moirach the monster all the way through the novel. I wanted her to have that kind of anger and rage, and so it seemed more fitting to have something terrifying rather than the mermaid that everybody kind of thinks of as beautiful and sweet and the beautiful voice and all that sort of thing. So then Scotland seemed like the perfect setting to make the most of its folklore.
I think the writer's brain's always going off on a tangent, isn't it? Thinking, well, what if, this and this and that?
Exactly. Yeah. And I plotted out the whole thing in, I think, literally like half an hour before I had to go for the wedding. And it's never happened to me before, and it's not happened to me since. And actually very little has changed from that first, which I will show you in the notebook. But it has changed very little from the original kind of arc, which is satisfying.
You can understand where the ancients got the idea of the muses from, can't you? Just something coming like that out of nowhere.
Just completely came out of nowhere, and I really want it to happen again. But it's like the harder that I think, right, I must have some inspiration, it's the more it eludes me. So yeah.
So it's been suggested that Hans Christian Andersen may have drawn inspiration for the story of the Little Mermaid from his own life and the rejection that he felt. Do any parts of your novel draw inspiration from your own life?
Yeah, I think there are definitely elements of it. So Iris, I think as a character, she's very lonely. And I think there've definitely been points in my life where, I felt loneliness and isolation. And as I said earlier, grief is, plays a part in the novel as well. And, there've been points in my life where I have experienced grief as well. So I think kind of inspiration for my own life more in terms of kind of the emotions that she is feeling. Sadly, I've not had a fight with a handsome monster hunter, but there's still time. So.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Your novel is very character driven. What came first, the characters in your mind, or the plot?
Definitely the characters. So Iris came first, and she very much came as kind of almost a fully formed person. And I think she, from the start, it was very, very clear what her motivations were, because she was trapped somewhere she didn't belong, both, in terms of physically trapped in the body of a monster, trapped in a loch, isolated, taken away from her life. So I think kind of straight away the stakes were kind of very easy to set up, because it was obvious that she had this mission to try and break her curse. And then the plot kind of twisted and turned from there, really, kind of putting those obstacles in her way to both, I suppose, try and stop her from breaking the curse, whilst also ramping it up so that she really had no option other than to break the curse. Otherwise, she's going to get herself into a lot of trouble. But she was definitely the first main character, and then came the plot, and then the male characters took a bit longer to come together, and they took a little bit more thinking about and planning. And so the book is told through 3 different POVs. So we've got Iris, and then we've got her longtime friend Duncan, who's the only person who knows the truth of what she is, and then we've got the monster hunter Henry. And Iris's POV and Duncan's POV came quite easily, but it was harder, I think, for me to capture Henry's POV, because he was sort of a stranger coming into it. And I think by the time I started writing him, because I didn't kind of sit down and write it in a linear fashion, it was kind of all over the place. But by the time I started seriously writing his POV, I was so deeply entrenched in the world of Kilmara and Iris that I found it quite hard to then step back and approach it as a stranger coming in. So his opening chapter is him arriving in Kilmara, knowing nothing about it other than there's a monster on the loose and there are some dead bodies appearing on the loch shore and everybody suspects the monster. But he's coming at it all completely new. So that took some time to get right, I think. But he is one of my favorite characters. So
He's your favorite character, is he, to write? Or
so I think, well, I have two favorite characters for different reasons. The first is Iris, because she was so easy to write, and I really, really enjoyed exploring the interplay between her and Moirach, who's the monster, and kind of the voice in her head. And there's a lot of push and pull between the two of them as the story progresses. And I really, really got very into that. But I think my favorite character, I mean, obviously Iris, has a very special place in my heart, but I think my favorite character is Henry. And I think because he's deliberately quite understated. So he does hold his cards very close to his chest. And the reason that he does that is to try and protect himself from feeling again things that have happened to him in the past. And so for me, I find him quite an endearing character underneath all of his, monster hunting.
So you previously stated that you did lots of research before writing the novel. What sort of things were you researching? How did it help your novel?
So I started off with researching Scottish history. I wanted to get the time period right. So I didn't want to kind of set it in kind of exactly, the Outlander, Culloden kind of, time period in Scotland, because I also didn't want to ignore, big historical events like Culloden, but I also didn't want the story to go down that path. And I also wanted to tie in the Scottish history of witchcraft as well, but I wanted the story to be set when kind of the worst of the witch burnings and witch trials were over, just to reinforce the fact that this village is really, it's behind its times. It's very superstitious. It's very insular, and isolated as well from all outsiders. So I did a lot of research into the time period itself, so that I could tie those in. And then I did a lot of research on Scottish folklore. So I got very into researching the Loch Ness Monster, and also, things like I've got a notebook filled with things like, or how deep is Loch Ness, and the reality of what it would be like down there for her, because it's absolutely pitch black right down at the bottom. There's just zero visibility, and then even when you come up to the surface, because of all the peat that drains from the highlands into the water, it remains very, very murky even right at the surface, which was perfect for the atmosphere that I was trying to create. So I did a lot of research into kind of the landscape, and then Loch Ness Monster, all of the strange folkloric creatures, the kelpies, will-o'-the-wisps, and will-o'-the-wisps. They there's kind of a story about them whispering words of kind of departed loved ones, and without kind of giving anything away, I almost kind of went down a bit of a tangent with will-o'-the-wisps coming in a little bit more, but then decided it was too much and got rid of it. But that was really fascinating element. And then I kind of, the more I got into researching folklore, the more I wanted to bring in more and more different creatures, and so I had to really work quite hard to narrow it down to just the few creatures who actually made it into the novel, and then kind of the history of fairies and changelings as well. So much.
Fairies, fascinating. I researched it for my, sounds strange, but I researched it for my job once. Because we were doing talks on it, but it's really fascinating because they're not like the winged fairies we think about so much. They're really dark and scary, and you really would want to meet one of them.
Exactly, yeah. And I found that fascinating as well. That they're kind of very mercurial and really fit in very well with the darkness of the landscape and the atmosphere. So all tied in very nicely.
What was your favourite folkloric creature or legend that you researched?
I think it would be the Loch Ness Monster, because there are just so many stories of the sightings, and it's got 3 humps, it's got actually it looks like a dinosaur, and it's fascinating. And then looking at kind of the stories of sightings even up to very, very recent history, and people kind of submerging cameras try and get a glimpse and all of that. It was and I think it was as much kind of the superstition and the fact that people still really want to believe that there is a monster in Loch Ness even now, which shows how enduring a legend it is and how fascinating it is for so many people.
So the novel is set in a remote Scottish village called Kilmar, on the edge of Loch
Moynia. Yes.
Moynia, okay.
Yes.
Is this a real place that the novel's set, or is it inspired by a real place?
No, it's completely made up. And I wanted to go for something that was obviously very dark. It's set around kind of Halloween, so we've got the changing of the seasons, so it's all kind of misty and foggy, and I wanted something that had that kind of historic atmosphere to it. So it's all kind of old cottages, everything is quite dilapidated, but I also wanted something that would highlight not just the poverty of the community, but also which kind of embodied just how isolated and insular and how suspicious the whole community is. And so actually I think possibly part of my inspiration actually for the novel in general is there's a film which I think I might be the only person in the whole world to have watched ever, called Loch Ness, and it was made in the early 90s, I think, and Ted Danson is the lead in it. 90s Ted Danson at his peak, and he's an American scientist, and he's been sent over to find the Loch Ness monster. And he arrives, and this community, I mean, it's set in modern day, but this community is, they are not at all welcoming. They're coming at it from the perspective of they want to protect their history and their folklore and their legends. They don't want outsiders coming in to kind of, monetize or the legend. And I wanted to replicate that sort of very unwelcoming atmosphere, and kind of having Kilmara then be very dark and very foggy, was a big part of that.
I definitely felt I was sort of up there with the misty mountains around when I was reading it.
Yeah. Good.
And on your Instagram page, you mentioned that you wrote a piece of music for the character of Iris, which you listened to for inspiration whilst you wrote. So do you compose music for all of your characters, or was Iris special?
So I do have one other piece of music that I wrote for one other character, which I might upload to Instagram at some point in the future, and without giving too much away. Generally, this piece of music is a very kind of melancholic and moody, but it's also written in a key that is very complementary to the key that Iris's music is written in. But no, I do, because I listen to music all the time when I write, and I really struggle to write without music. So on the few occasions that I've tried to just write in complete silence, I'll maybe do a sentence and I can't do anymore. So I sat down to write, or just actually to play at the piano, when I was kind of in a bit of a plot hole when I was writing Lochbound, and I wasn't quite sure where to go with something in Iris's storyline. And usually what helps me is just to sit down at the piano and which is sit down and just play anything. And then I kind of started playing around with it and I was trying to kind of just play something that was, like a Scottish folk tune that I thought, that might get me in the right kind of frame of mind to write my way through. And then it turned into Iris, and then and then that turned into writing another piece of music, which was again very helpful for the character in question. So, I will be using it going forward for all of my novels.
I was talking to Peter Laws on the last one, and he was similar. So he writes music for soundtracks for all his things, but it seems to me that a lot of writers are sort of multi-creative. I don't know if that's the right word, where they do music and then they do writing, or they do art, and they So perhaps it's a thing, but I'm mainly just a writer myself.
Perhaps it is a thing. I would love to be able to draw, actually. That would be amazing. So I feel like there are a lot of beautiful landscapes that could be painted about from Lochbound, but sadly I draw like a 3-year-old. So
Hazel, I remember Hazel saying that she she does all her own covers as well. So it's like, wow.
Wow, that's amazing. That's
Impressive.
very cool. Very cool.
So has historical romantic fantasy always been what you've loved writing? Do you read romantic fantasy yourself?
I do read romantic fantasy. I, you know, all the usual suspects. So, ACOTAR, the series, absolutely love it. And that, you know, started off kind of in the realm of a fairy tale retelling as well, I mean, from Beauty and the Beast. And then, you know, the fourth being the series, of course. And then, and actually this year seems to be an amazing year for new romantic fantasy as well. So there's a novel that came out recently called Weaving Shore, which is fantastic. And I've actually just started reading Deathbringer, which released, I think, last week. And that's more of a dark academia vibe, but it's again romantic fantasy and historical as well. And which is, so far it's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, that's very much my vibe. It really all comes from The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe when I was a child.
So you're represented by Emily Glenister of the DHH Literary Agency.
Yes.
What was your path to finding an agent and finally a publishing deal? How long was the road to publishing?
Yeah, quite long. So I have always kind of written stories, and you know, I wrote a lot of short stories when I was a child, none of which should ever see the light of day. And I started writing properly during my first maternity leave, after I had my son. And it was my husband actually who kind of encouraged me to do something for myself, and writing was it. And I wrote, this was not actually my first novel. I wrote a novel which was sort of loosely a retelling of the Three Sisters of Fate from Greek mythology, set in Victorian London. And I had queried a couple of agents and had some really nice feedback. And then I decided that actually it would be quite useful to speak to an agent directly to get their feedback on things like, you know, query letters and the synopsis, because those are kind of things which I think are quite functional, but you also have you have to get them right, because agents receive so many queries that if these things aren't right, then you know they've got 1,000 other queries in their inbox they need to get through. So it's, you know, it's worth getting it right. So I booked an agent one-to-one with Emily through Jericho Writers, and we had our initial conversation, and I think we immediately clicked, and we have such a brilliant conversation about synopsis and my opening chapters, and she requested a full manuscript during that call. And then a couple of weeks later, once she'd read the whole novel, she offered me a representation,
Wow.
which was amazing.
Brilliant.
I still remember getting her email on, it was a Sunday evening, and she sent me an email saying, are you free to have a chat? You know, tomorrow, as in Monday. And then she said, oh, actually, I'm also free this evening if you'd like to have a chat. And I was like, obviously it's this evening, whatever you have to say, I need to hear it now. So, and honestly, absolutely, and it sounds very cliche, but it was a life-changing conversation. Yeah, and then, like I said, that my first novel, we went out on submission, but we went out with it at a time when I think the market for Greek retellings was really, really saturated. So we again had lots of lovely feedback, but at the time, you know, people felt that actually the market probably couldn't take another Greek retelling from kind of a new author, because there's so many authors who do it so incredibly well already. And then kind of by that point I was already working on Lochbound, and yeah, it all went from there.
And has having an agent changed anything for you?
Oh, in so many ways. I mean, firstly, she's amazing, and she just takes care of absolutely everything. She's just a complete superwoman. But I think when I signed with her, I think it kind of hit me that, oh, this is a real kind of serious thing. Like, there's a chance that actually I could write a book that somebody might want to publish, and that takes it from, just me and my laptop sitting in a room to, actually all sorts of other things. Like, I'm not just writing for myself anymore. I'm writing with intent. And then there are all kinds of other things like, contracts, edits with, editors, and, marketing, and so many other things that go into publishing a novel. And Emily is there to kind of handle and guide me through all of that, which is, just amazing. So I just couldn't do any of it without her.
Maybe one day it'll be a film or a TV series. I could definitely see it as that.
Here's hoping. Yeah, I'm hoping for a Netflix special, and I really want Henry Cavill to play Henry the Monster Hunter.
Popular choice, definitely. So you studied novel writing on a Curtis Brown course, and can you tell us what sort of things you learned on the course? How has it helped your writing?
So I think it gave me a lot more focus to my writing, because I kind of, I don't know if this is how lots of people approach their first novel, but I kind of just thought, well, I have an idea for a story in my head. I'm just going to sit down and write it, and obviously it'll immediately get published, and there we go. And that's obviously not how it works at all. And the Curtis Brown course was really, really valuable in teaching me actually how to structure a novel. And also, I think most importantly, at focusing on characters and their motivations, and how to actually use those motivations to drive the plot, rather than having a plot that then you're trying to, fit your characters into. And that I found really so valuable. And you share your writing as well around a group, so you have a few people who are looking at your writing each week. And I had not shown my writing to anybody before, and that was quite a good way of getting me over the fear of showing people my writing, which was important. So
that is really, really hard thing, isn't it? Showing other people what you've written. It's quite personal.
Very personal, yeah. And it's like your whole heart is just out there on the page, and then you're thinking, God, what if they think it's it's rubbish, or it's but yeah, no, thankfully everybody was very kind at the time.
So what thing has stuck with you most from the course, do you think?
So I think in terms of my writing, I definitely had a tendency, I think, to try and make maybe not each sentence, but each chapter for sure, kind of perfect before I then was happy to move on to the next. And as a result, I wasn't really getting anywhere. And so I think the thing that has really stuck with me is just to get it all down on the page, because the magic is in the editing process. And I think I went into it a little bit scared of the editing process, because it seems like such an enormous thing to actually, you sit down and you've written something, you've written 100,000 words, and then actually you have to pull it all apart and then, completely rework it. It's quite a daunting thing. But now it's my favorite part of the process. So I find myself like racing, trying to get to the end of the first draft so I can pull it all apart and put it back together again, which is great. And I think, and it's made it all the more enjoyable for me. And I have a group of friends as well who I made on the writing course, who have just been a really invaluable support to me through this whole process, and it's lovely to have a group of friends that I can talk to about this stuff.
Because your normal friends get a bit bored, don't they, hearing about your writing all the time?
I didn't tell anybody for a really long time that I was writing. It was only when I think it was when I got the book deal that I told people. And so before that, it was really just kind of very, very close friends and family. And, I just kept it all really to myself.
And it was your stunning cover art that drew me to you and the way it was advertised, which made me take notice to start with. So who created the cover art? It's very widely admired by your readers.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. It's a very talented designer called Ella Garrett, and she works for the Little Brown Book Group. It's one of the Sphere is an imprint of Little Brown, and yeah, she designed it, and I still remember the first time that I saw it. Actually, my editor sent it to me as a PDF in an email, and I opened it, and I was at work at the time. And I just opened my email and saw it, and I just like audibly gasped in the middle of like my, the open floor kind of at my desk, because it was just so beautiful. And I think the first thing that caught my eye were the scales behind, the title, just stunning. So she's just very talented.
You're a big lover of using notebooks for your writing, I see. So
Yes.
do you use them to write the whole novel, or is it purely for your research?
So it's for my research. So I actually I write the novel on my laptop, but I will do kind of initial research, kind of maybe kind of big overarching plot points. I'll do kind of sketches and mind maps in my notebook, and then I use it properly for doing my chapter by chapter breakdown. Once I've got the first draft, I then go back, do a kind of little mini synopsis for each chapter through the notebook, and then it gets color coded for themes and character arcs and things, and yeah, that I found a lot easier to do by hand rather than on my laptop.
Sounds very organised compared to me. I'm more like Humphrey in Beyond Paradise. Do you ever watch that?
No, I haven't.
He's got all his little bits of notes paper in his pockets and things, and he goes, oh yeah. So mine's on little bits of paper everywhere.
I love that. I actually, at one point I moved from notebook to Post-it note, and I had a Post-it note per chapter, and they were all stuck on my wardrobe door for about a year. And one of them, I actually think I might have scared my cleaner a little bit. She came in on one of the Post-its, said attempted murder, like in massive capitals. So I was like, okay, maybe we ought to take that one down.
If anybody ever looked into writers' search is online.
I mean, it's dark. It really is.
Yeah. How do you kill somebody with poison or
exactly?
Like that?
Yeah. I've definitely got some. I did a lot of research actually into kind of natural poisons for part of my book. So there's a lot of how quickly you can hemlock kill someone.
Yeah, I think I've looked that one up as well. Yeah. So I think sometimes people believe that authors are sort of birthed from some fiery phoenix egg and arise fully formed, but it takes a long journey to become any sort of writer, and many people help us on our journey. I couldn't do my writing without my husband's help. And your sister seems to have been a big influence in helping you write and publish the novel. Is that fair to say? Yeah.
Yes. She has been a huge support to me. And she actually, I did an Instagram post of along these lines, actually. But on the day that I had the idea for the novel, I came back from the wedding. So I've been thinking about it all day, obviously not whilst watching my lovely friend get married, but before and after I was thinking about this novel. and I messaged my sister in the evening when I got home, and I said, I've got a new novel idea. It's The Little Mermaid, but she's the Loch Ness Monster. And she was like, okay, I'm going to need you to tell me a lot more before we commit to this. So I then kind of gave her the headline, sort of, plot points that I'd jotted down in my notebook. And she was like, yes, I think you need to write this. And she, has read kind of draft chapters. She's been there to kind of talk about characters and what they're doing and what they're thinking, and would this be realistic? Even though obviously none of it is realistic. So yeah, she's been amazing.
I love the fact she commissioned a painting as well, didn't she?
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just absolutely beautiful. Yes, so it's hung up in pride of place.
So how important do you think it is to have such support when you're writing a novel? And has anybody else helped you on your journey?
Yeah, I think it's really important, because I think it is quite an isolating thing, and I think you can get kind of very stuck in your own head, and I think you need to be able to, at various points, just kind of sense check what you're writing, and my mum actually has been a huge support in that regard as well. So she's also read kind of a lot of draft chapters and has been there for kind of chats about plot holes or character issues that I've got, and then just husband for moral support as always. So yeah.
I always like to have a bit of fun with my questions at the end of an interview. So if a witch came along and enchanted you into any creature from folklore, and you were cursed to stay as that creature for 50 years, which creature would it be?
So I think that I would be a dragon. Yeah, because they're very in vogue at the moment. I'm not a trendy person at all, so I think it'd be quite nice to be trendy and fire breathing and able to fly. Big tips from me.
I think I'd quite like to be a fae or something, from
Nice.
the fae folk.
Yeah.
Hiding in the forests.
Yeah.
So what's next on your writing journey?
I'm working on another novel at the moment. So it's again kind of, I'm in the research phase at the moment with folklore of another kind, not Scottish this time, but yeah, really enjoying it, and again trying to race to the end of the first draft so that I can edit it properly.
And where can people meet you in person? Are you doing any book signings, attending any book fairs, anything like that?
So we've got a couple of events in the works, but they're not confirmed yet. But when they are, they will definitely be on my Instagram page. But yeah, hopefully got a couple of signings at some point.
And where can people find you online?
I'm mostly on Instagram. And I have very, very recently ventured over to BookTok. So I am trying to find my way, yes, on TikTok. It's very, very addictive, so I have to be very careful about going down the scrolling rabbit hole. But yes, yeah.
I love it because you can sort of find a lot of people can look at your video even if you haven't got followers. You might have 2 followers, but you can get 20,000 people looking at your video.
I know, it's I mean, I'm lucky to get a couple of 100 views on my videos, but so I'm looking at a more modest reach. But it's fun, and what I love actually is that one thing that I have enjoyed about Instagram is all of the book recommendations that come my way, and BookTok is like that, but just times it by 1 billion. Now, like my because I don't do social media at all, so when I joined Instagram, I was like, this is brilliant, I've got like 100 200 titles to add to my reading list. And now that I'm on BookTok, that it's just spiraled completely out of control. So just not enough time.
Thanks very much, Rebecca, for coming on the show. And
Thank you
month,
for having me.
On Pandora's Library, I'll be talking to the author G.R. Pigeon about his spooky mystery, The Haunting of Herne Hall. Thank you very much, and see you all next time. Bye.
There are stories galore in volumes by the score on every subject throughout history. It's all